Hi, and welcome to 15 minutes of consulting best practices. Format here is pretty simple. You ask questions and we answer them so that you have a better, more satisfying, healthier, happier consulting business. I'm David A. Fields, and I am joined by my friend, Bob Burg, whom many of you may know as the co author of the best selling Go Giver book series, which is incredibly impressive. Bob, it's really an honor to have you here. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, David. Great to be here. Always love having a chance to speak with you.
Excellent. Likewise. Okay, I think most of you know the drill, which is if you have questions for Bob, or you have questions about your consulting practice in general, post them in the chat. And we prioritize what you ask. And hi, Michael, and hi, Robin, and hi, Scott. Um, and so we did have some questions that were submitted ahead of time. So we'll start with a couple of those. But this is a rare chance to talk with Bob. I also think it's fair game, Bob. I'm putting you on the spot here. If you have questions even about like how do you create a book series as it was so popular, or how do you leverage it for your practice, or something like that, go for it. But Jaron, while we're waiting for people to post theirs, what came in, and I'll read and then Bob, you get to answer. Let's see. Jonathan said, I had a prospect call last week where I spent 45 minutes diagnosing their problem and essentially gave them the roadmap to fix it themselves. They thanked me profusely and ghosted me. Dang, that sucks. My partner says I'm being taken advantage of and need to hold back more. How do you know when you've crossed from generous to foolish? All right, that's I think pretty common. We all see that kind of situation. So what do you think, Bob? What's that line of demarcation between being generous, being a go giver, if you will, and being foolish about it?
Well, I think there are three actually different issues within the questions. A great question, and I appreciate Jonathan asking that. So the first one regards ghosting, but it's perhaps thinking that it's because you gave all that information. So first, let's look at ghosting itself. That seems to be the new uh, word in the sales vernacular, being ghosted, as though that's something that just is part of the modern day new thing. I've been in sales for 40 years. Prospects did it then as well. Okay. And it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily because you gave away the store or you gave them too much information or whatever it was. You felt you had wonderful conversations with people and you never heard from them again or never heard from them until they needed you. Right. So we don't really know that the person, and this is the second part of it, we don't know that Jonathan was ghosted, if that's what he was. We don't know
Right.
that's because he gave too much information. He may have, but he may not have. And so basically, I would ask Jonathan this: when you were doing that session with him, were you also doing a discovery with him? Were you finding out what he really needed, what he really wanted, what he really desired, what would happen if he didn't apply the information, what kind of time frame he had before he felt as though, whatever it was, because I don't know, the conversation. But that's the big thing. See, if you can give them, and I'll know this as consultants, you can give them great information, but that doesn't mean they can apply it without your guidance. Okay. Also, at the end of that conversation, did you set a time, a day and a time, for him and him or her, whoever it was, and were they agreeable to that?
Right.
So there are a whole lot of facts here that we don't really necessarily know. So now we go to, and of course, what are you going to do from this point? Well, maybe they've ghosted you, but maybe they haven't. You don't know what's in their head and why they haven't gotten back with you. Personally, I mean, I think it is rude that people do that, but I thought it was rude 40 years ago when people did that. If they weren't interested, why don't they just say, well, I don't think it's a, or what have you. But we're talking about human beings. So it's just what it is.
Yeah.
So are you going to have now some kind of campaign where you're able to not touch base. I hate that word. Don't ever say you're calling to touch base, but but where you are getting back with them with additional either information or questions, to see if they're interested or not. One a friend of mine, and her name is Dina Breslin. One of the things she does, and again, we're considering all things being equal here, that they are interested and that what you did was helpful and that they really did appreciate it and that there might be a chance for business, is what she does. She suggests sending the first email that you sent that they did not respond to, and at the top, just write your thoughts. Okay. And this has been used by several people I know now. I haven't done this myself because as you know, at this point, I'm kind of semi-retired and I'm not really chasing business right now. But people who I've checked with they've gotten great results. Does it work every time? Of course not. Nothing does. It works some of the time. But again, we're assuming that everything else is, they really are. They have a need, a want, and a desire for it.
Right.
So that's what I would say. Can you give us? So where is that line though between giving away too much information or not? David, I think it's a personal thing. My feeling is always provide great information, provide lots of value, but also be doing your discovery so that you're able to help them see where they need to take that next step. And then you've got people who will keep asking you for information. They'll keep asking you for guidance, but they don't think, gee, maybe I should be paying for this wisdom. And so when it gets to a point where you feel now it's gone past the appropriate stage where now they should be paying, now during your next conversation, you say, it sounds like you've received some real value from our conversation. They say, oh yeah, I really have. And you say, yeah, as you know, this is what I do professionally. So if you'd like to have a professional consultant client relationship, I'd be honored to do that with you. Is that something you'd like to pursue? Boom. Now they can say, well, yeah. And now you get, or no, I don't think blah, 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 or what have you. And so, now what you're doing is you're kind of cutting it off at an appropriate point. So you're basically, in a very kind way, letting them know at this point, now you need to be paying a consulting fee. Is that helpful?
Helpful for me. Let us know. You're listening live. Is that helpful? And what follow-up questions you have? I do have a question for you, Bob,
Sure.
just based on that. So a couple of really smart ideas in there. You should always have that next date and time calendared. That makes it less likely you get ghosted. Recognize it's not about you. Be right side up. So they're not ghosting you. They may have other things on their mind. Be in discovery. So I have a question for you. We often say to consulting firms, that if a prospect can get everything they need in a 30-minute, maybe even in a 60-minute conversation with you, and so that's everything they needed, you were never going to sell a 6-figure engagement to them anyway. So it's not like you're losing something there, because
Exactly.
there was never some. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree? As a little bit of an idea of when is it too generous?
It always just depends on the situation, right? I mean, if there is something that's really just a quick, consult that they just need, it's not going to be a long-term thing. However, you can cultivate the relationship with that person.
Right.
So that they are a wonderful source of referrals. You can turn them into your personal walking ambassador, or as my friend Richard Weilman calls it, a delighted advocate for you and your business. So it all depends on that, individual, unique situation.
Excellent. That's outstanding. Robin wrote a very nice note here to you. She just started reading The Go Giver and loves the approach. 2 months into your consultancy. So congratulations, Robin, and learning a lot. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Wishing you much success, Robin.
Bob's stuff is awesome. There are some questions here, and hello to people who are saying hi, that are less Bob oriented. And because we have Bob here, I'm gonna save some of those, if it's okay, for next week. Like what we revised for 2017. I will answer that next week. And leveraging AI for consulting, and actually, Scott, let's ask your question to Bob and see what he says. He says you're seeking an increase in the monthly retainer by 20% due to increase in the scope. And what do you think the best approach is? And I'm not sure I completely understand, Scott, what you're saying is 2026 business plan versus just asking. So let me just actually put it to you, Bob. As you in your philosophy and in the approach you take, if someone wants to take fees up because scope is increased, just to ask, or is there something more complex than that?
Yeah. So, I mean, scope creep is something that we come across a lot because, as we know, people will, especially if they like your work, they're going to ask you to do more and more. And please understand, there is nothing about operating your business as a go-giver that is congruent with being taken advantage of or
Right.
doing things that are not appropriate to do. So if they're asking you to do certain things outside the scope and it's, simple for you to do, it's alignment with your values and you feel okay about it, well, by all means, that's up to you. But we're talking here about, and I think the questioner is asking about when it gets inappropriate. So they're really asking you to do things that are not within the realm of the agreement. Okay. And so here's what you just say to the person, because you always want to answer in a way that doesn't put them into a corner. You want to do it in a kind, diplomatic way. So it's just, thank you so much for asking. I believe if we were to review the agreement, that's rather outside the scope of what I was brought in to do. And they say, "Oh, yeah, well, it is, but I really need you to do that." And then now you have two choices. If it's something you would do, but at a higher fee, you say, "Oh, that's fine. I'm certainly happy to pursue that with you. We would need to, of course, increase the consulting fee." For that, but I'd be happy to do that if that's something that you would, right? Okay, now you do it. Or if it's something you just don't want to do, then you would have the opportunity to say, "Oh, I so appreciate that. That's not really something I would want to take on. However, perhaps I could find someone for you who would like to have that." You know what I'm saying? And now you refer someone else to do that. But the person who asked the question, I think what he was saying was, yeah, he would do it. He just needs to charge more. And in
Yeah,
that
that's
case,
what it looked like. Scott, by all means, chime in if I've misrepresented your question or misunderstood it. We're probably a little bit more blunt than you are, Bob. Though our typical advice in that kind of scope creep situation, if you will,
Mhm.
or scope is increased 20%, if they're trying to get it for the same fee, is to recognize the person. So be right set up. So we'll typically say, good for you for asking. Um, that's the right thing to ask for. You're looking to expand the scope in the right way, so that's smart to do. Uh, of course, we can't do that within the current scope because it's out of scope. Um, so if the question is, "Hey, would you do more for the same?" But we want to increase scope 20%, same fee. Good for you for asking it, and no, it's kind of
Yeah.
what
We're
that's
both
our
saying the same thing, just in a different way.
yeah,
I
exactly
would
right.
say, "Oh, thank you. I so appreciate your asking." And I believe if you look at that, you'll see that's outside the scope of what
Yeah,
we've been
exactly right.
contracted to do. However, if it's something you'd like to pursue, I'd be absolutely happy to do so. We would just need to, again, increase the
Yeah,
consultation fee appropriately. Boom. I mean,
right.
it's just two different ways of doing it, but it's the same thing.
100%.
Same thing.
And so Scott, and you said we have it spot on. Going into 2026, for instance, or even right now, depending on where you are in your project, your engagement, you can give alternatives, right? You can say, "Here's the current scope for current fees." And also, because you're looking to increase it, which we think is a great idea to increase scope, here's the fees that would be associated with
Sure.
the new scope, which is 20% more. And by
Beautiful.
the way, I actually think there's some other things that you could do that would add a ton of value. So here's an even higher expanded scope and, with
Beautiful.
higher fees.
Mhm.
Bob, is that feel fair or not? And then I know we need to wrap because we hit the
Yeah,
5.
no, yeah, and I think that's handling it beautifully. I mean, again, you're not looking to be taken advantage of. You're looking to provide exceptional value and be fairly compensated for that.
Excellent. I know we've believe it or not, we have already hit
Wow.
the bottom of the hour.
Yeah.
Bob, thank you for joining me. All of you, thank you for joining us for 15 minutes. We didn't get to a bunch of questions. I promise we will get to them next week. But as we're wrapping up, if you haven't already done this, go to Burg.com, which thank you, Jaron, for posting that. There's just a ton of great information and value to be had there. Also, I do recommend you sign up for Bob's daily impact email. Thank you, Jaron, who posted right there. Sign up, just benefit from just an extraordinary amount of insight and wisdom. And finally, for those of you who maybe aren't here every week, put davidafields.com Monday Live right in your calendar for Mondays. Put it Monday we start at the same time every Monday. And just, you can send in your questions in advance and we answer them. So we're going to prioritize the ones that came in. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you have a fabulous week. Thank you again, Bob. For all of us, we just need to remember consulting is not about us. It's about them. It's about clients and prospects. So we give them value. We give them kindness. We follow all of Bob's rules and we'll do well. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.